Hello, friends. Welcome to SAGA Thursday, the show all about the SAGA miniature skirmish game published by Studio Tomahawk. I am Rodge, and I'm joined on this monthly episode once again by Mr. Monty. How are you, good sir?
Great, Rodge. How about yourself?
Ooh, I am excellent. So we've got a juicy episode planned today. We got some news and events. We got some comments, Q&A stuff. We got our kind of hobby and game progress. We're going to talk a little bit about the topic of this episode. Does base size matter? I don't know. Yes, no, perhaps. And then I thought we could talk a little bit about the Winter Wolves event as well. We both attended that. So let's get into the meat of it here, shall we?
Yes.
We've already talked beforehand. I know you're good, so we don't have to get into all that jazz. So last time we talked a little bit at the beginning about the Adepticon events. So since then, somebody actually heard about it and then signed up for the Age of Magic through the YouTube video here. So that's very cool. And I thought we could use SAGA Thursday for the power of good here and plug some other events that I know about. So what I'm thinking here from now on is you can send us an event. We'll plug it. That first time, we'll talk about it a little bit, and then I'll just have it down below, and people can see as it comes up. So Adepticon, March 26, 29. So registration does look like it's closed on the website, but you can show up, buy a ticket, and there's 12 spots left for Age of Magic and 15 left for Age of Crusades. So that's Thursday and Saturday. It's a good time. Adepticon.org. We've talked about it enough already. We'll move on. So I do have a couple other tournaments. So these are the ones that I know about. And if you're running an event, let me know about it and we'll talk about it. So I want to talk about, I was contacted by these guys in Portugal. The SAGA Slugfest is coming up May 2nd and 3rd. That's in Lisbon, Portugal. And it's going to have all three historical ages going at it, Monty. So Vikings, Crusades, and Invasions.
All flavors.
Yeah, all the love there in the entire SAGA world will be on stage for everyone. So that looks really cool. The website is sagaportugal.pt. I'll have the link below, but check that out. We've got a new event here in the Midwest since last time. I'm running another SAGA. So I guess I have two SAGA tournaments I have to run here. One at Adepticon and then on June 20th in Wausau, Wisconsin, where I am at. So in the very middle of Wisconsin in the Midwest here, we're doing an Age of Crusades and Age of Vikings combined event. So looking forward to that. Monty, are you coming, big guy?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
I wouldn't miss it.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm running it to give Jeremy a chance to play. So he's my compatriot here in arms, and he's run the last three here. So I want to give him a chance, and we'll probably flip-flop, alternate from here on out. So that's cool. Do you have any idea what you're going to bring? Have you thought about it?
Well, I have no Age of Crusades warbands at the moment, but that doesn't mean I couldn't paint one up for the event. So.
No. As we'll find out, you're a filthy painting animal, Monty. That's all I have to say about that. So, yeah, it should be cool. We're not going to do mercs or legendary stuff, so it's just the straight war band. So it's kind of a little puzzle for folks to figure out, and it should be cool. And then the last one I have to plug here, which we've already talked about before, was SAGA World Cup, November 7th and 8th. So the teams from different countries can get in on that still. I know May 1st is the deadline to open it up. So I don't know if are you eyeing that, Monty?
I am. John? It's on my calendar. I've talked about it. I do want to go. That would be awesome. Yeah,
I think it would be really cool. Doesn't look like it's going to be in the cards for me, but it's still early time. Never know.
Yeah.
We never know.
Yeah.
But so those are some SAGA events coming up. If anyone has something to share, German Grand Melee, French Grand Melee, I know they're out there. Polish one's coming up, I think, in the end of summer. So if you guys can shoot me those details at rodgerules@gmail.com, we can get that announced for everybody. So other than that, we do have official Studio Tomahawk news is lacking. And now someone posted Hercus Monty on the Discord some pics of elephants with fatigue markers on them. So it looks like maybe Age of Hannibal's back on the menu.
Yeah. I blew that picture up as big as I could, and I tried to sleuth it. It looked like it was a mirror match of Romans. That was my best get, and I could see Roman on the edge of one of the battle boards. So I think that's what they were playing.
Oh, cool. So I'll have to go back and look at it. So it looked like a battle board that is not out yet. It said just Romans
Correct.
Across the top.
Yeah, it may have even been on the left label, as I remember. It was like, you can kind of fool around with those graphics a little bit. I probably should double check it, but I blew it up, I squinted, and I'm like, I think that says Romans. And it did look like legionary type figures on both sides. So exciting times. I need to paint up Age of Hannibal's now. Get cracking.
It looked like, so there was elephants. It was like a big game, probably a group game. There was at least 10 or 12 points. So there wasn't...
Yes.
It was like, ooh, is Hannibal going to be an 8-point game standard? How are they going to mix it up? And then it kind of looked like there was two, maybe like really elite cavalry hanging out there. Didn't it look like that? Did you notice that?
It did. I thought I saw Numidians in there too. So you got your light horsemen. Very healthy mix.
Yeah, there's definitely the Numidians, the kind of the zebra stuff going on. And then, I don't know if that was just a Hearthguard unit that had been depleted, but it looked like they were on like 50 mil, just really big bases, and there was just two of them. So maybe some kind of elite 2-man unit, like creatures or something.
Yeah.
But
right.
Yeah. So maybe the scuttlebutt was Age of Invasions last time, but now it looks like maybe Hannibal is back. I know the second edition of Muskets and Tomahawks is obviously taken a lot up of Studio Tomahawk's capabilities, I'm sure.
Right.
So hopefully later this year we'll get some Saga love.
Yeah.
So a little bit of that tease on the official front, but I just wanted to point out for the Saga paint contest, Gripping Beast came through, and the winner, I believe it was Martin, if I recall correctly. He got so Gripping Beast gave him a box of plastic Dark Age cavalry. So that was really cool. And then,
those are nice.
Yeah. So, maybe you can, if you're a winner on the next one, you might be able to sweet talk Andy at Gripping Beast and get, Viking Warrior box or some entire warband out of it, perhaps. Then Amanda got some, I believe, Galgadel figures she posted on the Discord as well. So I was actually talking to Gripping Beast, and they were like, "Yeah, Chris's cataphracts, those are footsore." I think I said they were Gripping Beast, or that maybe you piped up their footsore. But Gripping Beast is actually coming out with plastic Roman cataphracts imminently, because they had the Goth cataphracts, the plastic set. So that's cool. But there's actually more plastic cataphracts on the way, because Fireforge has their Byzantine Kickstarter, which is going on right now. So they have cataphracts as well, and then they already have different plastic sets, but they're going to expand and then add some resin ones. So that looks really cool. If you're
it does. I was eyeing that just this evening. I think they had Cumans in the mix too, so kind of a nice wide range of forces, hopefully. And I think they said the target was December of this year, so more choices.
Yeah, very cool. I do have the Roman stuff. I'm waiting for Age of Invasions to come out just to see what happens with the Roman board there. But maybe I'll get some of those a little later. We'll see. And then also in plastic news, so Atlantic Games has their Irish Dark Ages plastics are coming out. Those are scheduled for March, sometime in March. So I confirmed that. They're coming over on the boat, though. I don't know. They might be, maybe they're infected, Monty. I don't know. Darn, real life.
Interesting times.
Do real life getting into the hobby business where it doesn't belong.
Exactly.
So those are really cool. Looks like anybody who buys that's going to end up with a ton of dogs, because I think it's 3 guys and a dog per sprue or something like that. So they're good looking dog. I mean, people. Yeah. It's tough to find good dog models. It seems like I don't know if you had that problem, Monty.
I haven't painted Irish in quite some time, but it is a little tricky. You might want to put a dog up on your hero base. That's always kind of a nice look. You know, the warlord goes to battle with his, trusty mastiff at his side. So yeah, those are super handy.
Yeah. So looking forward to that release as well. And then the last bit of news here. I don't know. Did you see the German warband building challenge that was posted on the Saga group? So this is Mirko Wenning, who's kind of seems like a ringleader for the German Saga community, and he runs, I think, Stronghold Miniatures or Saga Stronghold. He does have a website. I don't have it right here, but I'll post it below. So this is really cool. There was basically a warband building league across Germany primarily, and everybody painted up essentially a point of warriors, I think, for February. And then certain people got prizes, but they had the entire, it must have been like 50 or 60 people involved in this. So it was amazing. And I posted, it's actually opened up. Anybody can participate in this. So it's another Saga painting contest out there. So it doesn't matter if you're from Germany. You can go to the website. It is in English. I don't know if that's through the power of Google Translate or if there's an English version that he updates, but it kind of explains everything. You have to paint a unit of Hearthguard and a warlord or a hero. So it's not just limited historical. It could be magic as well. And then I think it looked like 3 people would win a prize. So I'm going to be painting some Hearthguard and a warlord this month. So I'm going to be sending my pics over there, buddy.
Nice. Good call.
Yeah. So I'll have a link below for that. It sounds like it's going to be ongoing for a while. This is either the 2nd or the 3rd month. So that's really cool, I think. Yeah. Anything I missed here, bud?
I think you got it all. That's pretty. That covers a lot.
I started taking notes. I don't know if it's good or bad, but I started doing it. Okay, so we had a lot up front here, Saga News, for comments going forward. We're just going to keep it limited to just a few of the top comments or most interesting comments or most useful comments. And so these are decided by me. So the first comment here is my comment from last time. I decide the rules. And so I find my comment to be quite interesting. So last time was Tale of Challenges talk. So my comment is, perusing the rulebooks after the fact, presence is indeed ignored for victory points purposes. So that was a question that we had. And you started looking at that, but we never circled back around to, I don't know.
Couldn't find it quick enough.
So that makes the 50%, 75% challenges very interesting. So maybe we can circle back around to that just real quickly. So keeping 50% of your force alive is one, and then the other is getting 75% of your force destroyed. Yep. So if you have 2 or 3 points of monsters in your warband for Age of Magic, you can really skew that quite heavily. So basically, they're units worth of troops, but instead of being 8 guys, they count as 1. So if you have 2 or 3 monsters, you could have those guys run out, do all your fighting, get eliminated, and then you still have like 40 other models left in your army because you're playing Age of Magic.
Yeah.
So the 50% could be quite a lot easier to get or more realistic versus the just historical take on it. And then getting 75% of your models killed, then you could keep your heroes and your monsters back in reserve and send out your horde of infantry to get eliminated. and accomplish that, but still maybe have most of your army intact, or a good portion of it. Could be interesting.
That's a good point.
So, yeah, it's important to follow up on those things, Monty.
Yeah.
Okay, another comment here. Hercus Monty, he chimed in. He said, Incarnate is a good tool for building maps. You can get quite creative and add hex tiles. So did you see this one? Did you pop over there?
I did. I need to figure out how to use it, because, I mean, that would be awesome. A good map-making tool. So it did look pretty handy.
Yeah, so this was in regards to campaigns and getting a cool map and everything. So, yeah, I popped over there. It looks really cool. We are maybe doing a campaign here on the home front here, so perhaps we'll be using that. I don't know. We'll see.
Nice.
And then the last one I just wanted to talk about was Sean Moomies' comment, which he just got in on the chariot debate here. Wasn't so much the content of his comment, but he just chimed in saying that chariots were indeed a pain in the butt to paint, but he has a link below to his basically his army painting blog on, I think, the Lead Adventures blog website. So that's a really good thing to go and look through. So he's super talented, and he's very prolific. I don't know if he's Monty level of hobby productivity, but he's doing, looks like he has stuff from every age. He's got Age of Magic stuff, heavily converted and, well painted. So I just wanted to highlight that for folks out there, that they should go check it out.
He's won Best Painted at Adepticon, and I will tell you, after the first couple times of him coming out and killing it with those painting awards, people are like, is Sean coming out this year? Do we have a ghost of a chance? Right? So he does great work.
So I think he is coming out this year. Is he?
I thought he was. I thought he was. My gosh.
They haven't sent me a list of the players.
No, I don't have a list either. I was trying to think. What I've learned is the people who have started emailing me that they are coming to the event and what they're bringing. So we can kind of sort them, so they're not playing their buddies in the first round.
Yeah, I'm starting to get some sign-ups or the list submissions as well. So hopefully we'll get something from Sean here. Would be cool to see him. Yeah, I actually played him a couple of years ago when I brought my Byzantines. It was still first edition, the last first edition one.
Yeah. Well, that had to look gorgeous. Seriously,
yeah,
that was beautiful.
Cool. And then
the two sides.
Hagen is like, I gotta, your stuff is really good, but I gotta give it to Sean here. And I'm like, that's fine. I don't care. It's really good. He put in a lot more work than I did, so that's fine. So those are some of the top comments from last month's video, and if you want to get in on that, just comment below. Okay, Monty, so let's have some fun here. So we are mixing up how we're going to do the hobby and the battle kind of discussion there. So normally we kind of ramble on about everything that we did.
We do.
So what we're going to do now is we both have a hobby pick and a battle pick, and that'll kind of be the nucleus of our discussion here. So what hobby pick do you have for us today, Monty?
So my hobby pick is a upgrade for my other world with an eye towards the competitive, but also
to winning. Yeah.
Right, to win it. If you're in it, to win it. That's what we're trying to do here. So what I have learned, both from you and from my own test games, is in the other world, those heavy weapon warriors are just great. And so I couldn't find heavy weapon warriors. The ones that I had gotten with my first drop of Abyssal Dwarves from Mantic Games, those were 2, 3, 4 years old, and so I couldn't find them anymore. So I grabbed up their dwarves. I think they're called shield breakers, and then I just basically did head swaps and then sawed some of the tops of the heads with the chaotic type headdress and just nothing fancy, just glued it on top so they looked evil. I also took like the badges, right? I took the badges that are for the shield, and because I'm kind of speed painting these guys, with the effect being like a lot of, starting with a base of black and then an airbrush of silver, I put a bunch of the shield badges on their back so they just look gnarly and there's more stuff going on with them. So they were pretty quick. And then I'd say the one other thing I'd say about this is I had been doing like the horned items, like actual horn with, brown and then light tan and then white. And I just wasn't really happy with it. So I went back and I looked at it and I'm like, geez, I need something to make it pop. So I did the thing of bringing brass in with the silver and then washed the brass down. And that really made the difference. That really,
cool.
Like I wasn't real thrilled with it the first run, and the second run I brought some of these guys back in my test run and brought in more bronze bits just to give a little variety, and it's like, yeah, that's functional, that works.
Yeah, these guys look great. The colors are popping nice and bright. That's my thing lately, and these guys are delivering. So on your other ones, you don't really have like the gold or the brass contrasting with the silver?
Yeah. So I had all sorts of ideas. One idea was I was going to do brass and then like age brass, and like my test didn't turn out that great. So no, I was heavy silver with the, with all the horned items being kind of white. And it was just a little too, leaning towards monochromatic. It was a little too boring. So once I did the brass, and especially like once I washed it down and got it darker, it looked much better. I was like, yeah, that's what I needed. And by the way, not to steal any thunder, but my heavy weapon warrior build failed spectacularly. So you know how it is. You paint them new, put them on the table, they don't know what they're doing.
Like, yeah, these guys are going to be so good. Like,
right. I warned my opponent. I said, hey, apologies. I'm running a tournament tooled up army, and then he just spanked me. So I'm like, oh, well, that warning went away quickly.
Wow. Yeah, you really screwed yourself over with that.
Yes, I did.
I don't want to. No, nothing personal, man. Like, but I'm gonna put the spurs to you.
Yeah, how'd that work out?
Cool. So it looks like the full. Are we looking at 24 here of these guys?
Yeah, and my other ones takes me to 32. So I mean, I going all in, 4 points of heavy weapon warriors.
Wow.
432.
Right? So like 11, 10. Is that how it breaks down for you?
Yeah, I do agree about powering them up. If I worry about dice, which I do, I do worry about like my dice later on in the game, especially since my first run out was with a warlord on a beast, and then I'm going to lose the Weo Bay. I sometimes will strip out 4 and stick them somewhere, and it's like, well, on one hand, like I lose the punch, but I keep the die. So you know what I mean? It's improv. You walk up to the table, you're like, what am I doing here? Let me think.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, these guys look great. And so these are completely from scratch. Like I wasn't sure if you like retrofitted the previously ones that you had painted. So these are in addition. So
these are so scratch, to be clear, right? Like so so some of it is easy as a head swap, like that's all it is. I chuck out the dwarf head, and like when they have the empty head, but some of them have the head built in, so then you got to just chop off the top of the head and slap something on. Not a hard conversion at all, just sawing and gluing, and it's not beautiful in some cases, but from 3 feet it's awesome.
Oh, it works good. Yeah, so I guess my comment was these weren't hand weapon shield guys that you ripped the shields off of and then glued.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, that would be, oh my gosh, that would be a bear. Because the arm, if I remember right, the arm on these, is it already stuck to the shield? You know what I mean? Some of the stuff, you get into the kit and you're kind of limited on what you could do. Some of the guys have a head already stuck on, so like, okay, what am I going to do with that? Some, I think the arm was built in. But anyways, it's fine. No, that's why I had to go hunting for the dwarves to get like the two-handed, pose with the, two-handed weapons, get the right look. Yeah, I got a boatload of shield guys.
Yeah, so this is a huge
it just
force
keeps
now,
growing,
right?
Yes, it is.
Oh, man, that's awesome. Nice work. So if you want to bring up my image here.
Yep.
So folks, if you've been on the YouTube, feed. Basically every day I've been posting my progress on these guys. So I didn't really feel the need to kind of go through all those picks. But here's the state of the warriors so far. So basically, these guys are base coated and they're ready to get the airbrush. So hopefully, I'm recording this on a Tuesday. Wednesday morning, I'll edit it, get it out, and then Thursday morning, when this is going up, I will be airbrushing these guys. So you can see what I did with the shields here, Monty. So what do you think about this?
I love it. I mean, honestly, if I had the patience, hand-painted shields just shine. They're spectacular. So my one question as I look at them, you're going to do the undercoating, or there's a term for it. When you're spraying up from the bottom?
Yeah, there's not really a
undershadow.
Kind of like undershading, maybe.
Yeah, undershading.
If anybody knows, there's kind of nadir shadowing, because a zenithal highlight is when you come from the top. So nadir is the opposite of zenith. So nadiral, and then instead of highlight, it'd be shadow. But I don't know what the official term is. So yeah, it's going to put a gradient, if we're talking about the shields, on the shields, and then I'll go back and kind of highlight. So you can see the different shields I'm working with here. So that is the reason that I haven't gone with the Little Big Man Studios. So there's Brother Vinny's shields. There's the Gripping Beast, the big squares. Different, there's a smaller circular one on one of those guys. So this is essentially the Odin Raven symbol. Yeah. So the difference is a couple different. So as I keep going here, they're probably just going to get more and more esoteric or different, as I go along here. But these first ones were close. So I did do a couple that had the actual head, the raven's head with the beak and the eye and stuff. It looked pretty good, but if you have a lot of room, you can do it. But on some of them, the head started getting scrunched in, and then on some of them, I definitely wouldn't be able to do that. So I thought I'd keep it more, primal, representative. I don't know. There's probably a word for this kind of art. I'm going to be doing these ravens, I guess, throughout. So we talked about the warlord doing shields for everybody. So this is kind of along that theme where you can do whatever you want as long as it's a raven kind of deal. So I'm going to use so it kind of looks brown right now, but that'll be a black after the airbrushing. So it's going to be black, white, red, and then yellow are going to be the colors of all the shields. Okay. And that's the plan. So the test worked out good. And then after I did the first couple, you talk about the patience. It's actually, this is going to save me so much time as compared to having to, what's this guy's shield going to be? Should I do quarters or a half or make a cross or do some other stuff? Let me go online and look around, see what everybody else is doing. So this was quite speedy. So the first one took a long time. The thing is with painting the head, getting that to look right took about half as much time as just painting the whole thing. So just doing the triangles really went quick. So there should be, so this is the first batch of 8, and there should be about 16 more of these guys with these shields like that. So hopefully they turn out.
Nice. Quick question, Rodge. So when you airbrush from, coming up from the bottom there, bringing in your shadows, are you going to hit the shields, or do you have to worry? Do you have to mask the shield so you don't get your dark on it?
So I'm using an Infinity CR Plus, which has a 0.15 head. So it's very small. So with like an Iwata Eclipse, which has a .35 head. So that's more of a standard one. So I don't. Is that what you have, Monty? Or
yeah, mine is definitely not 1.5. I think it's 3-ish. That
yeah,
sounds
so
right.
.35 is standard, and the .15 is the smallest you can get. So you really don't have to, for this purpose, you don't really have to worry about overspray. I can keep it on the shield.
Yeah.
When I was doing under the arms and stuff, and I didn't really have to worry about overspray too much. So maybe some of that is practice, but it gets pretty precise with those little poofs of air. And then,
well, you've got my attention on this.
Yeah, and then when I am doing it, I'm doing it with primarily like Agrax Earthshade, and then really watered down paint. So it is more of a wash. So you can't even, if you put it full blast, like you'll get like a huge blast of wash on your model. So it actually, like, you don't want to do that because that'll ruin it. So you're really just going light over a few different coats. So if you overspray a little bit, like, it doesn't, it's not a full burst of black on it. It may be like a very slight color difference, so you can't really notice it. And then you could be like, well, I don't want to do that, so I'm just gonna move it real quick. So it is kind of subtle, building up the layers. So I do want to have to break the news to you, Monty. There's been some changes at work here. I'm not going to be able to get these guys done for Adepticon. I'm sad.
Oh, no.
Sad to say.
Life first.
Yeah, basically that's what it's coming down to. So I wanted to get them done by Adepticon for sure. And I was prepared to take a few days off for painting because that's what I do. That's like my fun thing. I usually take like a week off for the Wapaka tournament, building terrain and stuff. So that's done. I didn't do that this year, so I had the time. But one of our older coworkers spontaneously retired, and he's going to retire at the end of the month. And then I'm going to be taking his kind of a senior position. So I just need to learn everything I need to know, like, in a month. So I'm not going to have
no pressure. I'm
not going to have any time for painting days off, and then it actually involves some travel too. And then so I'm like doing all this calculations. I'm like, well, maybe I can still do it. And then like 2 days of travel, I'm like, well, that's 2 days less now, maybe. And then I have a couple buddies coming up on a Saturday. So I'm like, well, the Saturday's out. And then the Wednesdays, I'm like, I'm really running out of time here, where every waking moment is going to have to be spent on these guys if I'm going to do it. And then Hagen at the Winter Wolves is like, well, you better build a display board. Like, you're not going to win anything unless you get a display board. And then I'm like, okay, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. So these guys are a fun project. I want to get them done. But the models I have currently are perfectly suitable. I mean, I went to a tournament and used them as the Vikings. So this will be the last hurrah then for the Men of Wessex, but they will be used as Vikings and pagan people. So now I still kind of have a deadline because I've already entered into agreement to sell the Men of Wessex to a local fella, Zach. So the agreement was, after Adepticon, we would make the trade. We've already there's been a down payment, so the Men of Wessex have been sold, but they're going to be in the area still. So Zach will be running them, and you might see them in battle reports or something like that up against these guys. That's awesome. So yeah, it was really cool that he was interested, and we came to a deal on it. He's going to be happy with those. I'm going to get them all done. I'm going to keep the SAGA THORSDAY Warlord, the mascot for the channel. He's the warlord for that warband, but I'm going to keep him, and then I'm going to buy the same model, and I'm going to paint basically a new version for Zach to use. I get to keep my SAGA THORSDAY Warlord for promotional purposes. So that's going to be after Adepticon, so I'll have to get these guys done pretty quickly here because I won't really have a painted army except for the Roman stuff. And they don't even, I mean, who wants to use that stuff, right? So that's the scoop.
Well, these look great. Great start here. Looking forward to the next step.
Yeah, I think I will get this unit done for sure. You know, I've been painting every morning for 90 minutes to like 2 hours, basically. So, like,
wow.
If that's not going to get it done, like, I don't know what else I can do.
Yeah.
I'll get these guys done. I'll get a second unit of warriors for sure. So this is going to be 8 warriors, the Hearthguard, 4 berserkers, and the warlord. That probably won't get done by Adepticon. So, yeah, not too bad. Kind of a weight off my shoulders a little bit. I was kind of
there. You go.
Get myself in the corner there. So that's all I have to say about these guys. Actually, that's a lie. That's not all I have to say about these guys. So the second idea, so these ravens was one of 2 ideas for the shields. So the second idea was to do a different Viking rune on each shield.
Ah.
So that would have been the other idea. So I think that's a good. I think that's a good idea. I think that would have looked cool.
Yeah, I think so.
I think somebody could run with that. So I was gonna have 24 warriors. There's about that many runes. If you got to double them up, so be it. But I think that would look really cool as well.
That would be awesome.
So, yeah, let's move on here, bud. So, what do you have for us for a battle pick here?
So this is the game.
Who are we looking at here?
So first of all, we're looking at my buddy Scott.
Mm-hmm.
And this is funny enough, this is the game where he brought out his, as you can see here, or hopefully see, his mounted horde build. And I brought out my Otherworld Demons with 4 points of heavy weapons. And, you know, shortly before this picture, I said something about like, well, this is my tooled up list. So, here we go. It's Adepticon, right?
Oh, no.
And then I think that's when the wheels were spinning. He's like, I'm going to table you, or maybe something like that. But so first of all, just real quick, it's a great build. You know, I have some other buddies who play the Horde, and some of them are a little frustrated, especially the foot builds. You know, some of them are still learning, some are still struggling, but I don't know that I've ever beat this build. So he's got some magic in here. He's got the War Machine, which actually pulls its weight every time. Mm-hmm. He's got the Chariot, which is just devastating every time. He's got his Scourge. He's got a couple units of Warrior with Composite. And, you know, what they do is they kind of wait for the situation to get kind of like you get a little beat up, and then they start moving around and doing their Composite Bow thing where, like, you know, they move up and they get a free shot. They might move again, get another free shot. Mm-hmm. Certainly, if I end up within shooting range of them and they activate their next turn, they're going to open with a shoot and then move and then get another shoot. So
yeah, it's like you don't even want to get close, like, but
right?
You got to get close. So
you don't, and his lieutenant somehow shouldn't be a beast, but he seems to be a beast every game. So just real quick, like kind of in summary, because it kind of like can be described in 50 words or less. We were playing Desecration. I love Desecration. Desecration is the one where I put out 3 objectives, one within 6, one within 6 to 12, and then the third one within 12 to 18. He does the same. You put him out anywhere on the table. He bunched his on the left side of the table here. I threw 1 way out on one side, 2 on the back end, just to kind of change it up. And so I put like my whole army like facing this one quadrant, and was using Eruption to just like throw my heavy weapon warriors out there and hammer stuff. Mm-hmm. And it fell apart pretty quickly. His Chariot hit me. I couldn't get any hits on it somehow, and then it got a second attack in the first turn. My Warlord on a beast popped. Fatigue went everywhere. So I'm like, okay, we could survive this. But there were just a series of like things that just did not work. For example, I give eruption to a unit of 9 heavy weapon warriors. I send them against the war machine. How hard is that to take out, right? That should be a good matchup. Roll the dice. He makes the saves. He's alive, and I back up. I'm like, oh, that hurt. He throws his lieutenant around. I go to take out his lieutenant, hit him, makes the saves. I recoil. It just went over and over again. I hit his warlord when his warlord had like 1 fatigue already, and I had a little shot at him. I'm like, boy, he's just killing me with all these saga dice. I need to get his dice down. So get his warlord. I'll take down. He'll lose his we obey. He'll lose his saga die. Throw like 9, 10 warriors with heavy weapons. They fly 12 inches. Hit him. Roll the dice. He makes his saves. I think I put 1 hit on him with a whole bunch, and my guys are blowing off the map, and my saga dice are just disappearing. So it was just, and he was just laughing. So it was just hilarious. I think at the top of turn 5, it may not even been the top of turn 5. I looked around and I did a real quick count, and I go, dude, I'm done. I mean, I've lost my troops. I'm down to like 2 saga dice. I have a 4-man pack and some 5-man pack somewhere. I popped none of the objectives because I've been reacting to his, like, he's so speedy that I'm just so busy trying to react to all of his attacks. And I'm like, I popped none. You've popped 1. There's no way I can recover from this. So you're good. So he was very happy.
Yeah, that sounds rough. So as the demons, you want to be the one popping him, putting him on the back foot, kind of like our game before. Just keep bringing it and playing the demon game. But looks like he reversed the tables on you.
I want to throw one bit of advice out, and this is really to myself, right? Was that I was so confident, like I was the first player, and Desecration lets you as the first player roll a full board, but not really do anything with it. So as the other world player, like I park up my defensive plays, and I got this, I got that, and I was so confident. I had my Scourge in the front, I had my Warlord and the Beast in the front. Well, they blew one up, exhausted the other one. I'm like, okay, new rule. My front line will be my heavy weapon warriors, and everything will be behind that. So you can hit me and kill me, but punch my heavy weapon warriors rather than take out my, the crown, jewels of the crown here, my warlord and my Scourge.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of sounds similar to what I do, because when they're taking out the warriors are doing damage to them in return, like for sure. But then it is tough though too, because then turns 4 and 5, you're like, I still wish I had that big unit of heavy weapon warriors right now. Like, it's just not. It's what I got left isn't doing it. Just still wish I had those guys and hadn't gotten them killed on the second turn. So
they do go quickly.
That's cool. So are you doing any flyer troops, like flying Hearthguard or warriors?
Flying warriors, and I will say just a little bit of a cheat. This is just just some like FYI advice. I tried a sorcerer, winged sorcerer for my second game against Scott on this Sunday, and holy cow, like it unlocked some interesting stuff. And then I hurried home and painted a sorcerer with wings just so I could like have that in my that tool in my tool chest for the other world. So wings are good.
Yeah, especially handy. So obviously the 12-inch move is big, but typically you're in the backfield, so you can just maneuver to anywhere on the battlefield, essentially, wherever you need to be to get those spells, which are typically quite short-ranged. So, but yeah. So did you play against Scott again with the flying?
Did.
So did his war machine? I guess the downside is they do have that war machine. Basically, they hit her on 2s with those 2 dice. So not a big deal per se, but something to keep in mind that they can always. I guess against Scott is probably not a big deal against the Horde, but I'm thinking for the Lords of the Wilds, we're always being able to be seen and shot. You're definitely going to want that foot version at Adepticon. For when you're playing against those guys. But
exactly.
If you are flying, it's quite handy. So, okay, cool. Good games.
Oh, yeah.
Scotty putting it to you. Well,
yes, indeed.
My pick here, I don't know. Is it the same? No, it's a different shirt. So, perchance, I am also playing Scott here. Who said he's the unofficial third member of the cast. I think he's probably been mentioned in almost every one of these because he's shown up to every one of the tournaments. I think I played him in 2 of those at least. So this is round 2 at the Winter Wolf. What is the official name? I keep saying the Winter Wolves, the Wolves of Winter tournament.
Yeah, this particular event, it's under the Battlefield North banner, but it was just called Wolves of Winter, WOW.
Okay, so this is round 2 against Scott. So round 1, I played Eric Hagen, Vikings on Vikings. I got so excited I didn't take a single picture of that game, but it was a good game. Came out on top, super bloody. Got a SAGA Dice win on him. If it went to objectives, I'm not sure I would have won, but coming through. So for this game, Scott is playing Carolingians, which is awesome. So I haven't had a chance to play against those. We're doing the Old Feud. So I picked first. I got the Brute on my side. I was considering the Soldier because he's armor 6, and I know Scott's got a lot of shooting. So I was like, maybe the armor 6. But then I'm like, well, then he's going to get the Brute. And then I know I don't like that.
Yeah.
So I took the Brute. And a couple things with this scenario. So one was my game against Eric. I really tried to play to the objectives. So in this game, I really tried to go after and kill that guy. So he took the Soldier, and then in this one, so he thought that was the next best one for him. And the interesting thing is with you get to put down terrain. So if we look at the battlefield here on the right side, basically I set up a little forest for my guy, and it's just slightly 12 inches out, so I can move out, and I'm in a safe scoring position. And then he ended up putting his Soldier directly across, and then the woods across from that one. So a lot of the action was centered around that woods. So I was going first, and I knew I could double move into those woods and basically just put the pressure on him from round 1, clear him out, get some attacks on him, push him back, and then hopefully just kill him. And then his build is 3 units of bow warriors, 2 units of Hearthguard, and then I think just some warriors on foot. So I know he'd have a real tough time getting the Brute out of the woods if I did manage to kill him and force him to like absolutely kill him. So playing against the Carolingian board was kind of cool. So he had the Prolium ability. So up in the right-hand corner, they put basically they want to put 3 dice, and that makes the other abilities better. Kind of interesting. I don't know that those abilities are good enough necessarily to make up for not having those dice in play, but he did have multiple activations. He can shoot with 3 units, so hence the 3 units of warriors. He can send out his Hearthguard, do some fighting, but to have a bunch of defense dice and then run away without getting fatigued. So that's kind of another thing that they can do. Those were the kind of the 2 main abilities. He did have one that gave him 4 defense dice. So I think that kind of goes with the Bow Warriors. You can really keep them alive a lot better if you have a really solid defensive ability like that. So, so I pushed forward early on, got into the woods, did some combats, pushed him out, and then since I was in the woods, I was actually pretty resilient. A couple turns early on, I had a bunch of, maybe 2 or 3 rares, and so I just put those on defense dice, and then when he shoot at me, I pop one of those, so I get 2 extra defense dice. I'm blocking on 3s, so really didn't do a lot of damage.
Wow, yeah,
per se, but I kept focusing on trying to get that Soldier and kind of trying to clear the path. And so what started happening was he was killing my units, basically taking me under, and I was trying to get stuff and not necessarily killing his guys, but kind of doing like a position play to push him back. And so towards the end, like he still had most of his army like intact as far as like SAGA Dice, and I was down to basically half strength. And I did get some attacks on the Soldier, so I did have my attack run with a couple warriors, got through. And so it did come down to like the first attack probably wasn't going to do it, but I would have a second one with basically 2 guys. So if I would have rolled a 6 and then he didn't block it, like there was like a small chance I could do it. But that kind of gave me a little bit of a break. So he kind of regrouped, arrested that guy, surrounded him then, kind of laid off me. And then basically on turn 5, there really wasn't anything I could do to stop him, really, even though he was fatigued. Like he was, you can just kind of move up, twice and you're still within like the scoring zone, the non getting killed zone. You just have to be 12 inches out. So I'm like, well, that's the way it's got to be. Hopefully I'll get a turn 6 here, so I'll have a chance to kill him, because basically he's in the open at that time because he's using his Hearthguard to protect him. And then so on a 4, 5, or 6, it ends, or flip-flop, whatever happens, I roll and we play another turn. So I'm like, oh, okay, got a little chance to make something happen. He's got a little line of troops there. And then I think I have four Saga dice, maybe 5. I roll, but I get 3 rares. So I'm like, oh yeah, I think Ragnarok would be really good right here.
Yeah.
So I was able to use Ragnarok, and then I used the last rare to get more Saga dice, and then I rolled another rare and got more Saga dice, and then so I had a mostly full board, and then all his units were there, lined up within charge range, and I just went to town and basically eliminated almost everything of his and killed the soldier, cleared out most of his units, got his warlord. He just kind of had a couple exhausted units at the end, and one thing was he was able to like pull down those Prolium dice and add them to his board with an ability. So he actually had a full board, but after he put everything down, he didn't. We kind of did some activations, and he put one down on the wrong thing, because one of them you can do like a movement, but you need some Prolium to do it.
Okay.
So he had pulled it and didn't realize it. So he had like a really, basically he would have gotten some bow warriors in to him, but they would have been basically exhausted when they arrived. So he probably wouldn't have done anything. So it ended up being a sweet victory from the jaws of certain defeats. So unfortunately, that put me to the top table, and it should have been Scott up there against John there doing his best. I think that would have been a better matchup for that fight, and I think he could have done a better job. But really interesting game. So one thing was he did have an ability that would give him auto hits for shooting. So I was thinking about that, and he should have. Basically, he had some bow warriors near the brute, for most of the game. So he could have shot once, probably put a fatigue or 2 on, even blocking on 3s, and then pop that one, and then be like, okay, well, you got to make all these saves, or you're done. So I think that would have been a better play for him. But I guess I was keeping the pressure on him, so maybe he was kind of reacting. But I think that would have been a really solid ability, because then even once he's exhausted, all I can do is rest and get back down to 2, and then I have to like decide if I'm going to sit there or not. I got to react to him. So any kind of auto hit ability is quite tasty, especially for shooting. So
It is. It's great for Hearthguard. It's great for Warlords, and also in your case, could be great for a hero. But like you said, I bet it simply is just with the pressure across the front. You think about things you need to do, and then you have more pressing concerns, like crazy Viking warriors coming through the woods to take you. So you know what I mean. You're like, well, I'll deal with this threat now, and then I'm going to come back to it, and then tick-tock, it doesn't come. You got your brute away from the 12 inches pretty early, right?
Yeah, so basically first turn, I just moved him up. So that woods started, I don't know if I started him in the woods, probably not important, but the woods was within my 12 inches, and it extended past the 12 inches. So basically I just moved him with his determination the first turn, and like, okay, here he is. He doesn't have to move anymore. And then I knew that the way the woods were set up, basically he would be within charge range of all my guys if he did the same. So he had to back up and kind of get back, within like 4 or 5 inches of his board edge, and then kind of hang out there. And then I was still able to get some warriors into him, even sitting back there. So, this is definitely a fun scenario. Definitely one where if you seeing how this terrain, where I'm assuming that's probably going to be how it is in like every game if people have played this before. So if you have this might be one where you would almost, if you knew you're going to play it, you wouldn't take a mounted warband necessarily, because you know that you have to go in the woods to get him, or you know that you're going to put yours in the woods, so you want to be able to protect him with some foot troops or something like that. So it's almost like one of those things, or at least have the foot options so you can run into the woods and kill them.
Yep.
But it was really cool.
Good one.
As the TO, I know you were asking folks, did we have a good mix of the old feud challengers?
We did, and I saw a little bit of everything. I saw someone even take, and I hope I get the title right because no one ever uses this one. Someone even took, oh goodness, it's the one where they can add Saga dice 1 to 2, but they can take one away.
The Mystic,
there we go. Mystic.
Somebody did, because I was talking Dookie about him at post-tournament dinner, and someone was like, "Hey, I took him, and he did good."
Exactly. That's kind of funny. That was Casey, because it was fun. We had a little packet, but life is busy, and not everyone had a chance to read the helpful packet stuff or watch Saga Thursday. So, someone at the table was like, "Now explain this to me," and I walked them through it, and I thought like I did it pretty neutral, and I was pretty sure they're going to say, "Yeah, I don't want this," because I said, right, that late in the game, if you start picking up fatigue, you're going to add those fatigue as a minus to your die roll, your D6 die roll, increasing the likelihood of eating your dice at the very moment you need them the most, and you have the fewest, right? So I laid it out like thinking that was pretty neutral, and Casey goes, "I'll take him," and then I heard him say, later on, I go, "So how'd that work out?" He goes, "Well, the first time it cost him a die, but after that, he was rocking it and adding dice each turn,
Well,
so
as long as you keep rolling that 5 or a 6,
that's it.
He's good. You're
a hero.
Good guy. So, good times. So great game against Scott. And like I said, it took me into round 3 against the Silver Fox. So he was playing the Welsh. And this is another one. I got really excited. I didn't really take any photos, but it was pretty close up until maybe the 3rd or 4th turn. So this is like a tit for tat kind of game here. So set up my levy up front. I knew he wouldn't be able to resist charging in with his Hearthguard. So he did wipe him out, but had the critical 2 fatigues, so to cancel the escape activation, and then I could go in and wipe him out. So I was up 7 points to 6 in that trade. And then he tried to get a little crafty after that, because my warrior unit didn't take a lot of damage. So later he tried to finish off that warrior unit that took out his Hearthguard with his warlord, and only killed maybe 3 out of the 4. And then critically, I had some board stuff lined up. Basically it was an interrupt in the middle of my turn where I'm getting ready to attack his stuff, and he's like, "Whoop, I'm gonna fight your warriors here, wipe them out." So I was able to use Frigg to give me some extra attacks. So I critically exhausted his warlord, so he couldn't use he had the other escape abilities queued up, so he couldn't use those. So I killed the warlord, and those guys lived. So I was up 12 to 10 in points. So I think that was the critical thing. If it was 12 to 9 or 13 to 10, because the 3-point range is the win. I think I would have probably just backed out. I've never really done that in a game, but I think this is one where I didn't really see any point in trying to proceed. But as it was, so I wasn't winning. I was ahead, so I knew I could try to trade up one more time and try to get it. But by that time, I was approaching his lines, and then the mental calculus of who can react to what versus what you're trying to do, but it just becomes way too much. Yep. And I didn't my Saga dice were depleted, so I had to commit to action. It's just the Welsh trap. So on the last turn, basically he got to 22 points, so he got 12 off me, and I only got to I think 18. And then I think we didn't even play his last turn, but I think he could have got some more, but it just kind of collapsed. I didn't have a lot of units to capitalize on it. So it was a really good game. I probably should have just at the 12-10 just pulled back and said, if you want to win, John, you got to
come and get
it. Because against the Silver Fox with the Welsh, I think a draw is a win there, and I didn't recognize that at the time. Trying to make the win, but I think the draw was the win. And it would have been very interesting. I had some terrain. I could have turtled up. There wasn't a lot of avenues. It would have been a lot closer. He was going second too, so that made it kind of tough as well. So even everything being even, he probably could have shot it all off at the end and maybe just won anyways.
Yeah,
and
good point.
Not engaged. So I kind of had that in the back of my mind as well, as far as trying to push it.
Well, Rodge, he did tell me, we're doing some hobbing. He did tell me your 2 points of levies gave him fits, both with their shooting, right? Because they move 6, shoot 6. So that's a bit of a problem for a guy who's running ponies.
Yeah.
So interesting build, right? Not everyone does 2 points of levy javelin with the Vikings, but he said they were the part of your army that was really a problem for him.
Yeah. And then I was even thinking some more, this may have been a game where I wanted levy archers as well, and really castle up onto a piece of hard ground right in the middle. Because my chances of chasing down the cav and engaging them were slim.
Yep.
And then when he comes to fight me, they fight just as good, as the javelin guys. So I think that could have been handy in evening the odds and maybe plinking some shots against his warriors or some such. So it was a good game, and Silver Fox came out on top in the end. How was the event from your perspective, Monty? So you were running this tournament?
It was awesome. Makes me really happy. I mean, I really, me. I mean, I wanted to be throwing dice, but like you said, you gotta share. Part of the communities, you gotta kind of step up and help, and you gotta step up and give. So it was super well run, super great group. It was smiles. I was walking around just soaking up all the positive vibes and looking at all the beautiful boards and armies and plays, and it was just. From A to Z, it was a wonderful day, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Next one where I'll be playing.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was really fun going out afterwards and getting Mexican food and margaritas with everybody. So
yep.
I don't know. I might try to keep that tradition alive. I know, in Wausau here. Well, a block away from Odin's, there's a Mexican restaurant, and they do have margaritas. So they may not be as tasty, but I think they will suffice. So I think a group dinner is a good way to end any Saga event. So thanks for running that. Hopefully we'll see another one next year. Is that in the cards?
Yes, we may even get one fall. I mean, I don't want to, it's a little ways away, but there's talk that we might run 2 in a year. So it'd be probably fall to December, but definitely it was just full, maxed out. Everyone showed up, people traveled. Like you said, everyone just hung out, talked, just all the Saga love in the air. It was really fun.
Absolutely. So very, very good event. Hopefully you get to play in the next one. So our topic for today, nominally, is does base size matter in the game of Saga? So I thought this would be a nice, easy topic that we didn't have to do any research, but I did some research, and it turns out there's a lot to know here, for good and for bad. I think to address the main point, Monty, does base size matter in Saga?
I think it does, but I don't. I mean, my opinion is it matters. There's flexibility in it. So number one, like within the wide parameters that they give you, you should do what you want to do, like how you want your army to look. There'll be times like you see people build like a very large, almost display, style base with a warlord and, a champion and then a banner. And, having a big warlord base has some, as you'll point out here, has some small benefits. Nice range for throwing his we obey, but it has a few costs too. He's a little tougher to get into some of those narrow lanes and combats. But number one, do what you think is attractive. Use the army that you have, and then if you want to go farther and strategize it, I think that's you're going to go over some of the finer points here.
Okay. Monty says it does. I'm going to say no. It doesn't matter. Well,
interesting.
It's yes and no. It really doesn't matter, but it does matter at some point when you're moving the stuff around. But I would say in second edition Saga, it doesn't matter nearly as much because of the way that combat works, and you used to have to get within very short of the enemy in close combat for your attacks to be counted. So if you were a cavalry with big circular bases were just horrible. So that influenced me actually with the Romans because I started building those guys in first edition. So I like circle bases. I like cav on circular bases. But in first edition, there was no, I couldn't do it because if you were hit from the side, it's possible that your Hearthguard unit will only, if you had an 8-pack, only 4 of them would get to fight in close combat. Or it could even be worse than that if you weren't touching for some reason. So they had to fact that you were touching because your base could be so big that the second rank guy wasn't even close enough to fight. Depending how big your bases were.
Right.
So I think with second edition, that change has cleared things up. So
yeah.
So for Saga, you've got flexibility to do what you want. So I think the thing is, in the first edition, there was no rules there specifically, but in this edition there are, but they're only there because they have to put something in there. There has to be a cap, in the rules, or else someone's going to ruin it. And, so that's the only reason they're there is because there's a few people who are going to ruin it for everybody if they're not in there. So just real quick. So for the main rules, the heroes are on up to a 60 millimeter square. And then the minimum is the same as a regular trooper. So the interesting about that square is if you measure the diagonal, it's like 80, almost like mid 80 millimeter. So you can have a pretty long cavalry style base and still have it fit. So you can have a cavalry base over 60 millimeters. And you just put it on the diagonal on that square and it'll fit. So that's kind of interesting. So the Hearthguard, actually anything mounted can be within a 50 millimeter square, so slightly smaller. And then if they're mounted, they're no smaller than a 20 by 40 millimeter. So with a 50 millimeter square, you could have up to like about a 70 millimeter length, depending if you have like a really sharp oval. And then the foot guys are 30 millimeter square, no smaller than 20 millimeter square, which is interesting because a 20 millimeter circle is smaller than a 20 millimeter square because it doesn't have the edges. So that's what my Romans are mounted on, the infantry. But then it goes on to say that the minimum diameter of a round is 20 millimeter and the minimum of a square is 20, like just on the next line down. So based off that last line, I think I'm fine, like legally, but someone could poke at it and say that they're not legal models 20 millimeters round. So for infantry being exceptionally small, I don't think is any particular benefit. The benefits and drawbacks of base sizes I think mainly come into play on single models where they're more obvious. So that's the standard stuff. Now Age of Magic kind of messes this up in a few, in at least 3 different ways. So they could have just referenced the original stuff, but in Age of Magic, so I guess I didn't realize this till I was looking this up, but did you know that basically your infantry models, instead of a 50 by 50 millimeter square cap for mounted, it's a 50 by 40 millimeter square.
I did not see that.
So
no.
Yeah, I don't know why that
Little
difference.
deviation.
So it is possible. So if you were a wild man and mounted your cavalry on circles bigger than 40 millimeter for historical purposes, and you wanted to use those same models, technically those could be illegal by the Age of Magic standards. So something to keep in mind. So the other thing is the war machines are 150 millimeter by 60 millimeter rectangle with no smaller than a 50 millimeter diameter circle. But some of the examples in the book are bigger than that, so it could be misleading. And then I think the biggest issue is the Warlord on the Beast. So his base size is 80 by 50 with a 40 millimeter min. So a 60 millimeter round it's too big. It's not legal, even though every other hero is legal with that size. And the monsters can get quite big, but they can get down to a 60. So if you, like for my demons, I have a big demon prince guy. So he's mounted on a 60 millimeter round. So at the tournament, I just played him anyways, even though, and that's kind of our advice here, or my advice. I think that's your advice for these like kind of weird issues. And I know, so Frederick posted on the Saga Facebook group about the War Machine issue. And I think even Alex Bouchel or maybe one of the other French guys just posted that they're meant to be more of guidelines, which is fine. But then, you're going to people who go to tournaments and stuff. So like, I don't want to build something and then the TO is like, well, I see that, but I got to do what the rules say. So no, you can't use it. So that's kind of unfortunate, kind of side effect to kind of having these little niggling issues. So I guess in your area, I'd probably talk with your TOs or try to get everybody on the same page and just kind of agree.
And a war machine, unless it's a mobile war machine, a war machine is going to typically sit on your back line. So I mean, like, you try to, right? I mean, I'm trying not to micromanage. When I play, I see like bigger things are in bigger bases, smaller things are in smaller bases. I have never like rolled up and said, I'm not sure if that's legit. I mean, I don't know. I like, seriously, if someone had a giant war machine and it's in their corner and it's going to shoot and it's never moving in the whole game, I mean, I don't care. I mean, I need to go kill it.
Yeah. And so that kind of comes back. Does base size matter? It really, it's not a big enough deal to.
Can I pick your brain on just one thing on like matter, not matter, right? Like, so before the show, we were talking about like, charges and laying out the charges. And not to cheat. So when you talk about like you're mounted, like having your mounted on like a round, so are you putting those on 40 millimeter rounds? What do you use like when you're mounted, just a regular mounted, mounted figure, not Age of Magic, nothing fancy, just.
So my Romans are on like, I think like a 25 by a 45 millimeter, kind of like a custom MDF oval base.
Oval, there we go, oval.
So if I had my druthers, they'd be on 40, either 35 or 40 millimeter rounds, depending how big the horses are.
Okay. Yep.
Like the metal horses are they're not big like lengthwise. So like a 35 millimeter, I think, is appropriate for those guys. And my buddy actually has them on 32s. Oh. And they look good. One of the hooves is kicking over the edge, but it doesn't matter. So they look They look
Okay.
good, I think.
That helps. Like I was thinking of like, the rectangular one, and I've moved. Like as a matter of fact, in the last couple of days, I've taken some of my mounted and got them off rectangles and put them on some nice oval shapes. But I just haven't gone around the bend to the circles, the circular shapes you talked about, and I just didn't know, like if I'm using like an oval, that's one shape. If I went to like a 40 or even probably 50 is too big, 40 millimeter round, like my horse unit, my mounted figure is now kind of wide, and like sometimes you're trying to get to the battlefield, and I'm like, now we're kind of wide. Like, does that? But again, that's micromanaging. But honestly, sometimes Saga can be a game of millimeters. Like, can I make that charge? Do I have room to like get a lane through there? But anyways,
yeah. So that's a good point. So I think the next thing I kind of want to get into was the squares. So you can have square bases, circles, ovals, and then there's even the pill shape where you're straight, the cavalry's straight on the edge, and then a little hemisphere circle on the end. I think I talked about that last time. Chris's cataphracts were on those. So my official recommendation is circles for gameplay purposes. So why don't we get into that fact mention right now? So this is the reason why. So we can bring up a little image here explaining what we're talking about. So okay, so the fact clarifies. So when you're charging and stuff, if you have the bases that are longer one way versus the other, how do you do it? So the fact basically clarified. Now, we talked about this and we weren't. I think I kind of browbeat you into agreeing with me. I don't know. How do you feel on a scale of 100%? This is absolutely the way that it's done. What's your confidence level of the way that I described it?
It makes sense. We read it another way. The only thing that makes the ground shift just a little bit under my feet is, we've had, one or two other discussions where you can read a thing and your take on it is just a little different than someone else's, and then there's a bit of a gulf between the two of you. So I think this works. I think this is reasonable. I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. So let's say 61%.
61%. Wow.
Very specific.
I thought I was more persuasive than that, but
well, I'm always worried. Like, seriously, someone comes back and goes, "No, that's completely wrong, Monty."
Okay, so we're gonna lay it out. This is the way that I think it's done. The intent behind the moving figurines on movement and charges, part of the fact. Monty's at 61%. I've got some color graphics here, so I think that really adds to my case. But basically, so it just clarifies, how does the pivot, how does that matter for the charge? Can you go around stuff? Can you cleverly pivot around stuff? And the answer is maybe you can, maybe you can't. But basically, if you started out wide, for example, you're really wide, and then you can pivot during your charge. That's clear. That's what it says. You can change your facing, and then when you touch the model, then you're going to have some kind of facing to yourself. So you could be skinny or you could still be wide, and then you're going to measure, or basically you're going to look at that lane between the start and the finish. So I'm not sure exactly how you picture this in the game because you need two models, one at the start, one at the finish, but hopefully the graphic's clear. But basically you're going to have a corridor, which is what the wording is, and basically that's where your model went for the charge. So it could kind of be a triangle almost if you went from wide to skinny, and then if you cross terrain or impassable stuff, that means that you'd either get penalized or like it wouldn't be possible. So does that make sense, Monty? Hopefully.
Yes, that does.
I think the graphic will make it clear much more than
it really does help.
My words.
It really does.
So that is why I recommend just using a circle, because you don't have to deal with that. So, is that a big deal or not? Maybe not. I think about it when I'm moving my cavalry guys around. So there can be situations like in this one, if you could just pivot 90 degrees and go straight, you could go past the swampy, the swamp here. But due to the way that I read it is you would get penalized in this situation because you'd clip the swamp. So that is a reason to avoid the ovals, in my opinion, is so you don't have to worry about that rigmarole. And the same thing's kind of true with the squares. So the other issue with the squares is when you're like trying to push your guys in and like rank them up, they don't really want to cooperate. But then they are, a square is 25 millimeters per side, but then diagonally they're wider, like we said. So you can have that same issue that crops up there. So I recommend just using the circles. So on my demons, I did everything on circles, and some of that was painstaking, but was accomplished on the bigger guys. So I just recommend circles, hopefully. But it really doesn't matter as long as everybody's on the same page. You just don't want to have one person who knows this fact rule and the other one doesn't, and then makes decision and dice allocations based off a charge that will or will not be possible. So anyways, all right. So we've talked mechanics here. So you kind of touched on the pros and cons here previously. So let's talk about the pros of the bigger base. Just going as big as you can on everything. Like what would the benefits be here, Monty? You want to? What comes to you?
Yeah, the warlord is the easy one. I actually had a friend who gave me some grief because he said I was making giant warlord diorama bases just to get the longer wheel bay. And no, I do like the visual. So, big warlord base looks awesome. Can be a little heavy and tricky to handle sometimes when you load that up too much. But for your regular troops, I just run kind of bog standard stuff. I have 25 millimeter rounds for all my foot. So if I went 30, maybe the thing about running 30 is like 30, if I remember right, is the size for Age of Sigmar, isn't it? Maybe?
Okay, so that's like another issue we got to get into. So those are 32
Oh,
millimeters.
shoot.
So,
well, who cares, right?
If you want to be accommodating to those players, maybe you could have put that in. So at Adepticon Age of Magic, I've already had the question. I am allowing infantry to be on 32 millimeters.
Nice.
So no issues with that. So yes, you're absolutely correct. So for infantry, I don't think it's a big deal. Except maybe now that I think about it, terrain. We're having to get everybody into terrain to get the bonus. So like if you're thinking, like I'm allowing the 32, so getting 32 millimeters, all of them into a forest could be a lot more challenging. Where if you have 25 mils or 20s, you can kind of hang out at one side of the forest, or you can get everybody in there, push them in there easily, maybe. So that's something. But like I said, maybe we're thinking of the single model. So you're right. The bigger your base is, the bigger like your radius of effect is. So getting bodies for bodyguards within range is huge. So I'd always at least get your warlord on like a 40 millimeter base. I think that's what mine is for historicals. Going bigger could be good as well. The wheel bay range, like you said, is big when you're straddling the two units. You're not keeping your options open. More units in range, more options for wheel bay.
Yep.
That can be good. In Age of Magic, this comes into play. I've seen a couple times where I've hidden my sorcerer behind my monsters, which are like 100 millimeter and the 60. Right. So you can actually, if you have a bigger base, you can hide things behind them versus you could put like one last Hearthguard behind your warlord, or one last, whatever, that guy they're trying to kill. So they could be behind them. So it's like a double move to get around them. That's a benefit. If you have a big base, your kind of threat area is wider. Like if you're on the flank or something, to like get around you and stay out of charge range, that's like a bigger zone of the table that you're threatening. That could be good. So those are the kind of things that I've thought of.
Yeah. So I saw this just this weekend. Because you can put terrain just outside of 4 inches, so you can really snug up your terrain, and you get a scourge or a monster on a big base. You can be like, you just guard that gap, right? I mean, you just plop them in there. It's like, hey, you got to deal with me. So I don't know. And one other thing I just realized, right, when you have your Hearthguard dying for your warlord, if he's on a big plate, a big dinner plate, you can get more guys to, come over here. You got to die for me. Sorry.
Yeah, you just got more space on the battlefield.
Yeah.
So those are the pros. Now there are some big cons. So I have used in Age of Magic, I've played multiple games running 3 monsters with my demons on 100mm rounds, which are just enormous. There were a couple pros, like I mentioned. They had a big threat range. It was hard to ignore them. I could hide my sorcerer behind them. The big thing was the fatigue bomb range is quite massive. And that's almost, we're talking about really nuanced pros, but this is like a serious con to having a massive base. So that almost made me not want to do those guys. The models themselves are really massive, so that's why they're so big. The other thing, it's hard to get around obstacles. So an obstacle is sometimes the actual board, terrain, stuff like that. There's impassable terrain in Age of Magic. You can fly over models and land, but if you have a big pie plate, he's got one levy guy standing next to his warlord, and then a tree's over there. So now I can't even like physically move the 100mm pie plate in there. So you could have a guy standing out in the open, but be impossible to engage, according to the rules. You know what I mean? That actually, that did happen, just like by the chance. We're like, oh, I'm flying, so I can fly over, but I can't land here. So those two are like pretty huge cons in my book. So for Age of Magic, I would recommend using the smallest legal size for your monster bases. So pro tip, Rodge, when you go to an event, you look across the table, you see the Horde, and you see Scots running the Horde. Do not put your 100mm monster in the middle of your warband in the front lines. Otherwise, it'll be like Oprah, fatigue just for everyone. Yeah, I should do the numbers on that, the mathematics of the area and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I would just use the 60s for the monsters that we can get in to smaller areas. Do what you got to do, and when you die, not as many people care. So overall, I don't really see a benefit to using the really huge bases. I don't really see a benefit to using bigger bases for the troops. I don't really see a bigger benefit to using smaller bases. Maybe with the characters, just having a medium size base is appropriate, because even a 60mm is pretty big. So like a warlord in a historical game could find himself clipping some terrain or something, or not being able to get in and engage a unit that he wants to because he's just too big to be able to get around it. So those are my thoughts, good sir.
Yeah,
anything
good thoughts.
to add to it?
I think you got it all.
Yeah. I was taking notes. Should have been taking notes on my new position at work, but I was taking notes on Saga. Saga base size pros and cons. Good use, company time. So, okay, that wasn't too bad. I think we talked about that more than I thought we would, but it was called interesting points. And then I think the fact thing is a good thing to get out there. I don't just reading it, you might not really grok what it's trying to tell you, but I believe that's what it is. So if anyone has a different opinion on how that works, let us know in the comments below. If you have a favorite base size for your various critters in Age of Magic or even the historicals, what base size are your cavalry on? I think that's the most probably interesting decision that folks are assessed with. And the infantry, 25-ish is standard, but the cav can range quite substantially across the realms. So I'd be curious to see what those folks are up to. So, all right, I think this is about it, right?
It's a wrap.
Yeah, even though we kept it, we just did the picks and the battles and kept the comments under control. We still managed to make it another long one, but I don't think people will complain about that. So I think that'll just about do it for us. If you found the show entertaining or helpful, like and subscribe, share it with a buddy. So if you're looking for some good Saga resources, I've got links of all that below. I'll give a special mention to the Discord channel for this one. So we mentioned that's where Hercus posted the secret picture of the Age of Hannibal game in progress somewhere at some convention, I assume. But I also want to highlight a great basically a tournament report from Hamza where he had pictures and a big description of all his games.
Right.
It sounded like he went to Spain to get some Saga in, which was really cool. And I think that's a really good read, and I wanted to highlight that and have folks head on over and check it out. It's a pretty good community there, people posting stuff. So I think it deserved to be noted, and I think that's about it. You can get in touch with me at rodgerules@gmail.com if you had an event or a little news item that you want to share. Hit me up if you want to talk about Saga stuff. We're on the Facebook group. Monty, you're on the Twitter. What's your Twitter handle, my man?
I think it's at Twin Cities Gamer. Twin Cities Gamer. That sounds about right.
All right. And then I'm on Instagram now, the Rodge Rules, posting pics of my stuff. So if you want to see how the shields turn out, check that out. But I think that's about it. All right. So we encourage you to get off the sidelines and check out one of those links below. Get in on the action and have a good one. We'll be at Adepticon or post Adepticon next time. Maybe we'll record at Adepticon.
Oh, yes.
It's possible. I'd have to haul out the gear. It's possible. That's all I'm going to say at this time.
Right.
I'm not going to commit one way or the other, but it'd be really cool to do one of these face-to-face and then chat with some other people as well. So we'll have all the Adepticon knowledge at that time. And then we should have another paint contest kicking off at that point. So that one is sponsored by Brother Vinny's Miniatures.
Nice.
So he sent us some goodies to use. So very cool. And that's it. We're done. All right. Check you later, buddy. We'll see you.
See you guys.
Saga!